Welcome to the UpKeep Pledge Pros Podcast, a podcast dedicated to UpKeep's unmatched value and unwavering support to our customers through our new ambassador program. Today, we have a very special guest, one of my buddies, my dudes, and an industry expert from CMMS Radio, Greg Christensen. Greg, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Bryan. It's really great to be on with you. I'm excited. I'm honored, and just looking forward to it, man. Thank you.
Dude, awesome. I'm so excited to have you. Greg is the podcast host of CMMS Radio. As I said, CMMS Radio is the CMMS platform podcast, and it is real, raw, uncut. It gets to the root of the issues in the industry, talking to real, bona fide experts, as Greg would say. And, you know, Greg has been in the industry 30 plus years. He's built CMMS programs from the ground up, sold them, managed many programs, thousands of discovery sessions, thousands of implementations. And we are just ecstatic to have Greg be a part of our ambassador program. So this podcast is literally us poking Greg and see what he's all about. So the first thing I'll say, Greg, tell us about you, man. I know I gave you some solid intro, but give us some more info on you, man. Tell us who you are.
Well, there's a lot of ways that could go. So for me and my exposure to like the CMMS world, just to kind of square that away, is I spent several years building a building maintenance and management company alongside my longtime best friend and business partner when we were kind of banging around in Southern California in the 90s. And what happened was we got exposed to all these different accounts we're managing, working with, and we started utilizing like a day-to-day work order process where we would actually create manual work orders. And then we're dealing with all these facilities managers, property managers, you name it. And being Midwest guys and focusing in on this industry that's very crowded, all these service providers in the building maintenance industry really taught us how to differentiate ourselves through service and delivery, where we wanted incredible follow-up. We wanted lots of documentation, and not to jam people up, but to keep us on path for those clients. Because if you don't have clients, you don't have revenue coming in, and then it's over for everybody. Now, as we're going through and we get up into around the year 2000, the company, which started on like $400, became a multi-million-dollar company. I left the company and then went into e-commerce, spent some time over in the e-commerce space, and really got lots of exposure to what back then in the year 2000 would be like an ASP, as far as, you know, now it's SaaS or cloud-based, right? Yeah. And then while that was happening, he was building a platform that matched our account management process. And the way we ran the company was account managers would constantly dialogue with their quote unquote book of business, document everything, go on site, do inspections and all this kind of stuff. So we built a system that followed that process, really starting with work orders, complaint tracking, and that started to evolve. So he calls me up and he's like, hey, I'm working on this thing. All of the clients that we have now want to use this platform. So I'm going to have to actually move that in a different direction out of the company, separate it and go grow it. You want to do it? And I said, sure, let's do it. So we started building that platform with the client base, on and on and on like that. Later on, we sold it. That was in 2018 that we sold that. And then I stayed with the acquiring company. I did consulting and then helped with all the demos, acted as a subject matter expert. But there's a few other things in the fold, you know, going from the Midwest, coming out to the West Coast and all these kinds of things. Seen a lot, done a lot, but nowhere near what, you know, others have seen and done. So with CMMS Radio in particular, once I left the CMMS space, I thought, well, how can I continue to work with people, but just do it myself? So I thought a podcast is a great way to be one voice to many, provide guidance, get experts on, really help people pick up some insights that they may already have. And someone like you, any of the other guests that I have on, help kind of shine a light on those things you can be looking at, focusing in on culture and all that. But so I kind of mixed it all up about, you know, background. I also One interesting little note that I'm kind of proud of it is when we were building out the CMMS platform and growing the company, we were working all the time, morning, noon, night, weekends, didn't matter. I also went to college. I don't know. I woke up one day in my early 30s and said, "Oh, I need to go to college because I want to do this and this." And so I was banging on that the whole time we were growing the company, and we were doing really well. I mean, it was super fun, super exciting. All of our people had the things that we gave them from a leadership perspective to cultivate clients and care about your job. This is just really great, right? And he being the CEO, and I always took like a VP role. I didn't do a C-suite role. And him, company, us were okay with me going to college at the same time. Really grueling, but really rewarding. So
Definitely
a
tough.
lot of good stuff.
It's definitely tough. I mean, this is coming from a college dropout. All right.
Yeah.
I did 3 months of college and was like, nope, not for me. But Greg, so you had mentioned, and I think something very unique, which is very, very valuable for our industry, UpKeep's customers, all of these things, is the fact that you have been not only in the development of the system, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the thousands of implementations of that system, managing the business surrounding that system, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like for myself, I've done the implementations, I've learned the software and things like that, right? But I've never built a system, a CMMS, a whole program and business associated with work management. And I think that's extremely valuable. Can you tell us what you think the hardest part about connecting customers to their platform with all the experience that you have? So in a sense, what tactics, what things do you like to leverage to take a customer and go, hey, customer, you have X CMMS. This is how it works. This is why it's valuable. This is how it can be better utilized and all those things, speaking from all your experience.
Awesome question. So my approach, maybe it's a little bit righteous, but I'm big on customer centricity, doing things in a customer centric way. So even on discovery, I want to understand a lot about process. I want to understand a lot about pain. And what I learned more recently, say in the last few years, is I wasn't customer centric is phenomenal, but what I found out is I'm focusing in on the problem. So problem centricity is really what it's all about. So if I'm talking to someone on a discovery call, it doesn't matter if they're a lead or a prospect, I want to understand where they sit and first why they think they need a platform if they had come to us, or if I'm engaging them, I'm trying to understand, do they have the usual suspects when it comes to the primary problem that you solve? I think that's really critical for all CMMS platforms. And then what happens after that, when you're engaged in that way, you stay curious, try to understand, what can I do for this person rather than what can I sell them? I think that's what it really comes down to, because lots of organizations out there are great at selling, marketing, engaging, and that's fine. What I'm always wondering about, and kind of always have, is where does that change? Where does the rubber meet the road as far as where you're going to get that client on their journey? Because that matters. And I have no idea where that came from. I have no idea if it's an advantage or a disadvantage when you're out there doing business. But I will clarify one thing. When it came to building out the platform, I wasn't doing any of the building or the programming. I'm more of a button clicker.
Sure.
I was just all about that process. So any client that I dealt with, it didn't matter if they were a nonprofit, they could be in manufacturing, it could be farms, it could be anything like that. I even did some stuff with land subdivisions and all this. Once you really understand how their parts are moving, what's working for them now, you can find the gaps if they truly exist. Okay. It's not about manufacturing a gap or creating this, I don't like this hogwash when it comes to, say, for example, scarcity. I get it. yeah, you can get a discount and all that, but do what you're supposed to do, charge what you're supposed to charge so that you can knock it out of the park every single time for that client. And there's nothing more that needs to be said right there. And I think that starts with initial contact and being curious and really digging in.
That's right. And, everything that you've said is value-based. It's value-based. It's about achieving value. It's about, and I like that the fact that you said, do they need a system? Do they even need one? Right? Because I've had this conversation with many other experts. It's like some people don't. They don't need it. They're perfectly good with their very, very small operation. Maybe they need some work processes and maybe some bigger business understanding, right? But everything you've said is value. And, you made a good point there. And you said that you weren't the coder. Like, that doesn't matter. The fact that you've been in the business and you're able to influence the way that the software is being made is invaluable, because we find, and this very well with consulting, is like, generally the system is not the problem. Generally, it's some business process or cultural process or operational something that is limiting the functionality of the system, right? So what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with that?
Not only do I agree with it, I think it's a problem that is solvable, but you have to constantly monitor and kind of resolve that problem. So one of the things I learned about earlier this year was the ADKAR approach. And there's one aspect of ADKAR that I found really interesting, and it's the reinforcement. Because if you're going to institute or harness, so you're either going to institute some cultural change, some behavioral change within the team, or harness the existing culture, because you have to see what's there first. Always do that, everybody.
That's right.
See what's there first, understand it, talk to your people. But the reality when it comes to delivering these systems, getting people to, kind of buy in and really understand what that value is, like you were talking about the value, but they need to know why. And if you're going in there, they have to buy into that why, which means you first have to understand their why. Does that kind of fit with
100%
what you're
100%
thinking, I would say? Or I
100%.
really, culture plays such a critical role in how an entire organization moves. And one of the biggest challenges that we all see now, then, and it's going to persist, is the resistance caused by the disconnect between various departments within an organization. And it's just because. And we just have to keep working at it, keep working at it, keep working at it. Everybody out there, you're getting frustrated because your boss, maybe he's the CFO. Maybe he says, look, I see it as a cost. Well, you're going to have to figure out, instead of getting mad or, whatever, maybe figure out how you can present that in a different way, or, kind of connect those dots. That doesn't happen with the snap of a finger. That takes work, and you got to love that work. And if you do, from all the different people I've talked to and all that, I would say there's far better experts than me. I wouldn't even classify myself as an expert when it comes to soft skills or anything like that, but you have to somehow connect maintenance to the business, and it's there. It's actually absolutely connected. But as you move through different parts of the org, you're going to see disconnects, and it's just because it's not something that's going to go away. So just sign up for that and be good about empowering everybody. But that maintenance team and the culture, you've got to understand it well, and you've got to kind of meet them where they are and understand what's driving them. And when that's all in place, you got a really good shot at succeeding.
That's right. I mean, in like saying meet them where they are is right. I mean, we don't know all the time the intricacies of each individual customer and each individual layer of that customer and each individual person within each individual layer of that business, right? But, you and I have talked about this in the past, and it's like, we have to find ways, and you said, connect those dots. There's got to be ways to develop communication, empower, like you said, and get people in alignment to then have the same message. The same value stream is huge, right? And then those things will be noticed when the value is start to be cultivated and created at a level which we're talking about. people notice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure when you were starting net facilities and you were running all these, like, you saw it firsthand when a customer came to you with a need. You understood the need, you connected the need to the business, and then you connected the system to the business, and then you watched it unfold. Do you have, before we end, do you have any cool like stories about watching the light bulb pop up in a customer's eyes? We're like, oh, we can do this. It can happen.
I've got a bunch of them, but I'll tell you one of my favorite ones. And this is kind of a go-to, right? Things that happen throughout your journey, whether here, there, everywhere, throughout our lives, some of them just really stand out. So one of the challenges that we encountered was maintenance teams are out doing maintenance and they're also doing repairs. One clarification for everybody: maintenance and repairs are two different things. Maintenance is not turning wrenches, right? So there was a maintenance team and it was one of our premier clients, and we were having a lot of success there. They were one of our early adopters and one of the driving forces behind the fact that we had to create the company anyway, right? And break away from the building maintenance company so that there was no conflict of interest. The interesting thing about this particular maintenance team, they were resistant because they were not understanding why they were doing this. They were feeling like, oh, people just want to keep an eye on us. They want to know how much time we're spending because they want to jam us up and all this kind of stuff.
Very common.
So we find out about this and we were able to isolate where the resistance was with this team, talk to the, maybe chief building engineer that runs that entire team for that large facility. And we said, well, hey, what if we do just a separate session together and we work with you and we deal with this from your perspective? Could we spend that time and then see what happens? Says, yeah, let's do it. So we get together and we train them, but now there's nobody from other departments on the training, and it's just this team. And we're going through it and we're talking their language because we've worked with those types of individuals for so many years prior to the software even existing. So we have an understanding, and we never pretend to be an expert that we're not. We are more expert about understanding what they do and then applying all this to what's going to happen. So the beautiful thing about it was 2 weeks later, we didn't even have to check on it. We got a phone call from that man. And he said, to the effect, guys and gals, whatever, right? I don't know how the hell we were doing what we were doing without this. And
love it.
That and we were over the moon because that was our intent. That's what we thought. We knew if they could have that aha moment and it met their why, we might not have thought, oh, how can we meet their why and all that. It doesn't happen like that. You just
It's organic.
Shut everything down, listen to your client, understand what the problem is, go, how would I solve that if I was magically in his shoes right now? And it was really, really good because the client then could thrive even more. And what an endorsement when somebody says, man, we hated it because we didn't understand it. And it wasn't a technical thing. It was a why thing. And now that we used it and we're getting more done and we're having less go back work, rework is a killer when it comes to waste within maintenance. And if you have a CMMS platform that you can leverage, even in the most basic ways, you can gain benefit, ROI, but you're also cultivating that team by giving them a tool that can help them get home on time, less rework, not getting called in on a weekend. It's all good stuff.
Preach. No, go ahead.
I'm a fan of it, and it's not because I want to sell software. It's because I want to solve problems and I want to see teams moving and thriving, because I think that's what every single one of us wants. It doesn't matter which side of that fence, if you will, you're on, because we're all standing on the same ball of molten lava, right?
That's right. And two things to that. By you bringing this individual into the process, you've done one of the best things that you can possibly do, is just that. You've made them now a part of it, right? It's not you're doing this. It's, hey, be a part of it. Tell us, what can we do? How do we do what, all these things. And now anytime you bring someone into the process and let them have a little shot at their own fate and, steer the direction of the thing you're trying to do, man, it's so much more successful, right? It's an amazing thing. And that was a wonderful, story about that whole process. Cause it is a crazy thing when someone calls you out of the blue, you're doing system stuff. Someone calls you, hey man, thanks. Like we have no idea what we were doing and now we're doing it. Right.
It's the best. It's rewarding. And in that moment, none of the other stuff matters. It's just that moment. It's a very human thing. And that's the other aspect of anything I do. I want to try to maintain that aspect of what I do. It's a good way to do things.
100%. Call that sustained value. Whatever it needs to be. We're trying to sustain the value. You surely do that, and yeah. So
I appreciate that. I'm always in pursuit of what I call the elusive win-win. I think it's something to chase, and it's really, the
win-win, man.
Yeah, when everybody wins, man, everybody gets somewhere.
That's right.
If you can do that, you've got it's almost like a communication loop. When you close that loop and it's constant, everything's flowing and moving and all that. Doesn't mean you're not going to have problems and challenges. I mean, that's just part of life, right? You just got to find ways to not get stuck. But win-win business. So, when for example, at UpKeep, when your various personnel, and I've met a lot of them, are engaged with and interacting with people, they're being intentional and paying attention, right? And they don't want to just grab the cash. It's not about, whoa, I smoked that deal. Forget all that, man. That's 100%. Short term. That's short term. 100%. You need long-term solutions. And I'll tell you what, one of the things I'm most proud of is in my background, I happen to know that a ton of people stuck with that solution still to this day, which is very interesting to me. And I take some pride in that because of the way that's
your legacy, man.
Yeah. And I just like doing good stuff, man. Cause it's just a happier way to be. And, maybe it would be different in different environment or something like that. But, we're all out here trying to do good stuff and keep the world moving. And I think the skilled trades, the doers, the frontline workforce is where it all happens. If that ain't happening, nothing's happening.
That's right. And you gave me, I'm going to do a not shameless, it's actually an appropriate plug. UpKeepers. Greg is talking about the fabulous staff at UpKeep. They are doers. They are extremely committed to creating value. I've dealt with many, many, many companies. UpKeep's, team is just immense. Their words that come out of their mouth are, what can we do? How can we do more? What strings and levers can we pull to achieve for our customers? And it's a real thing. I'm hardcore and I'm all about maintenance, and I'm rough, just like you, Greg. We've been doing it, right? But when I hear UpKeepers talking, man, it is a wild event. I mean, they go to task. And Greg, I just want to thank you so much for being a part of my first podcast where I'm talking to you and you're in the hot seat as opposed to the other way around, right? And this is all for UpKeep's pledge to our customers for unmatched value, unwavering support, and Greg being a part of that whole system as an UpKeep ambassador. Greg, how can we get in touch with you?
Well, there's a couple of ways. So one, I'd love everybody if they could, check out some of the podcasts. You can check it out on Spotify. There's a YouTube channel for the video ones, and check it out. If you like that stuff, like, follow, subscribe, and share. You can go to cmmsradio.com, and there's a what's on your mind link. If you want to send a question, topic, an idea for, maybe an episode, shoot that over. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's Greg Christensen. But when you're on there, if you could find the CMMS Radio company page and maybe follow that as well, that way you can get some updates on the content. And we're just out here putting out some good content that's going to be useful to somebody. And I think it's not only is it fun, but what's rewarding about it is when you hear back that something you did helped somebody. And that's what I'm all about. I think it's just a fun way to exist, so to speak. And anybody that wants to reach out and connect, I look forward to it. I want to hear about your CMMS challenges, your horror stories. I want to find out if you have a problem. If you're thriving, tell me about that too. And I just want to know if I can help. I'll point you in the right direction, or I'll get in there and help you myself if it's a project that makes sense for us both.
That's right. And all of Greg's information will be in the description of this podcast. And Greg, I can't thank you enough, man. I know you and I will be talking again. And I'm ecstatic. You're number one to me and my boy. That's it. Thank you for joining UpKeep's Pledge Pros podcast. Look out for more to come and check us out on upkeep.com. We greatly appreciate it. You guys have a good day. Greg, thanks again.
You got it, man. Thank you, Bryan.